Bruh, it feels hot as nuts today. But hey, I'm sure it's fine, right?
6.5 hours later.
Oh man, I'm tired as crap and it's hot as balls. Yo buddy, are you okay? Yeah man, it's just... So, a while ago, I visited Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina / Fort Mill, South Carolina for the first time. Located directly on the Carolina border, Carowinds is a solidly run park with a top-heavy coaster collection. This park is mainly carried by Fury 325, the awesome B&M giga coaster littered with speed and airtime, with a whole bunch of garbage at the bottom. Luckily, I had a stress-free day getting most of the coaster credits with ease. However, my day at Carowinds was not a pleasant one, because that day was during a heat wave where it was scorching hot. I kid you not, the temperature was at 95 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity of 88%. So both my mental and physical health kept dropping as sweating bullets made me less functional throughout the day. But that didn't stop me from having a complete day. So with that being said, this is my scorching day at Carowinds on June 22nd, 2025. So this story begins with me getting dropped off shortly after the park opened. But the thing was that we weren't even supposed to go to Carowinds. The only reason I got to go was because of the SATs I took earlier that October. What happened was that my family wanted me to get a high score. The only problem is that I don't study for shit. First time I took it, I only got a 1060. So to motivate me, they said they would take me to a park of my choice. So that's what I did. I got a 1220 SAT score, which I know isn't the highest, but free college is free college. And score! I get to go to a new park. Except there was almost no planning when it comes to these parks. When it comes to planning in my family, particularly with my aunt, they either occur at the last minute or change at the last minute. I didn't even know what park I was going to. Plans kept shifting almost every month. Eventually, we landed on Carowinds as the final park. Walking towards the park, you can't help but be impressed with Fury 325, the Bolliger and Mabillard giga coaster that runs throughout the front of the park. And I was super excited. Not only do I get to ride another elite coaster, but Fury would be my 100th coaster. I go through security and scan my tickets at the front. Quick and easy. When I got inside, the first thing I decided to do was flip the bird out of this park. Yeah, I have some major beef with this park, because this was not my first encounter with Carowinds. 5 years prior, my family went on vacation to Sugar Mountain to see snow since I live in Florida and we don't get snow. We did not see snow, but at some point, I discovered our route would bypass Carowinds. The only problem was that this happened in 2020 during the off-season. So yeah, COVID. Actually, this scenario happened twice. I had to go back to Charlotte later that year for an unrelated reason. So when we drove into the park, it was closed. This pissed me off as not only did I not get to experience the park then, it ultimately made me miss out on Nighthawk, the problematic Vekoma Flying Dutchman that was scrapped the previous off-season. Whatever, that was then, this is now. When I got inside, I opted not to do Fury right away as I needed 5 other credits before getting on Fury. Instead, I headed left to ride Thunderstriker, the B&M Hyper formerly known as Intimidator. Now I've always heard Thunderstriker was on the weaker end of B&M Hypers, but a B&M Hyper is still a B&M Hyper. I entered the queue line and was greeted with a non-existent queue, which was a good thing because the queue line is an unshaded hot box of cattle pens. Reaching the station, I opted to sit in the front row and it was a good time. The first half has a quantity of floater airtime that gracefully lifts you out of the seat. The first drop and the first 5 camelbacks provide the highest quantity of quality airtime, but one thing that surprised me is how much weaker it is compared to other installations, especially Behemoth. Both are B&M Hypers with glorious floater airtime using the staggered seating design, but Behemoth has much stronger airtime than Thunderstriker. Not to mention the finale is rather lackluster with a slow helix and a hop into the brake run. Thunderstriker is good, but it is on the weaker end of B&M Hypers. After I got off, I passed by Kitty Hawk, the Vekoma Hang and Bang, only to discover it was closed for the whole day. There was no activity on site. From what I heard, the day prior, something on Kitty Hawk's lift hill caught fire and blew smoke.
Let's go smoke.
Hey yo, what the f***? Normally, I'd be disappointed that I don't get the extra credit, but Kitty Hawk is apparently one of the worst family coasters. Despite being meant for families, this Vekoma hangs and bangs riders into the hard over-the-shoulder restraints, all while the trains meander on the poorly made track that does nothing. It's so bad, Kitty Hawk could honestly be classified as child abuse, so Kitty Hawk being closed was low-key a blessing in disguise, but I had to pass it to get to Copperhead Strike, the mock multi-launch known for hang time. Bypassing Afterburn as that rarely gets a line, I discovered something that would come in clutch that day, a Coke refill station. This was a blessing on a day like this where even my felt like a swamp. As you can imagine, I abused the living out of these refill stations, so I grabbed a nice cold cup of water and headed to Copperhead. This mock multi-launch is a varied coaster with plenty of hang time and air time. This is also the best themed ride at Carowinds. In the queue, there are several props and signs related to the theme, as well as neat shots of the coaster. Now, the story is a little convoluted, as you'd think it's about snakes, right? No, you find out it's actually about Granny's illegal moonshine business akin to an Atlanta trap house. Regardless of how ridiculous the story is, the coaster is fun. 4 of the 5 inversions have elite hang time that hangs riders down for several seconds, mostly seen on the JoJo roll at the start, the first vertical loop, and the cutback halfway throughout the ride. Then Copperhead has some surprisingly strong ejector airtime. The bunny hills yeet you out with full force. Then hills like the Stangle Dive throw in the laterals. Now some of the low turns in the second half lack force and have a shuffle. Luckily, this doesn't affect my enjoyment of Copperhead. Overall, Copperhead Strike is a diverse coaster with equal rounds of enjoyment. Luckily for me, it was a complete walk-on, as in, only 6 of the riders were in that station. This was surprising because Copperhead doesn't exactly have the highest capacity. The coaster only runs with a 16-passenger train. They were running 3 trains, but they double stack half the time. The wait was so non-existent that I just stayed in my seat for 3 rides. After my mini marathon on Copperhead, I grabbed 2 more water cups, then I backtracked to Afterburn. This is the B&M inverted coaster hidden in its corner. You have to climb up a wooded hill to get to the entrance. Okay, what is it with parks having that one random uphill pathway? At least Afterburn has a lot of shade, probably the best shaded area in the park. This secluded location means Afterburn is a walk-on most days. This is good, because to be honest, the queue line and station feels like someone hotboxed the fuck out of that station. The station is a concrete box with tons of profuse sweat. I felt like I was working at the sweatshops. Luckily, I walked straight onto the train with decent dispatches. Afterburn is a powerhouse of positives punching you in the face. While it's not the longest invert, Afterburn does a lot with its layout. After the first drop next to this glorious parking lot, you get spammed with more intense inversions than spam calls from the Nigerian prince. The vertical loop and Immelman deliver the G's, the 0G roll has the whip, and the bat wing shows the snappiness. You get a bit of relief with this hill before going back to intensity with a whippy corkscrew and a helix. Afterburn is an intense buffet of positive G-forces that is sure to make a disorienting ride. Alright, I got 3 of the big 4 done, but I still need 2 more credits. So I headed to Fury and went on any coaster I came across. Also got more water from the refill station. Eventually, I came across Flying Cobras, the Vekoma boomerang relocated from Giga Lake. To be blunt, I did not enjoy the process of riding Flying Cobras. First of all, even though it's a 2-train wait, the queue line is unshaded, meaning I was getting more deep fried than the Iranian missile bases. Also, seating is on a first come first serve basis due to how narrow the station is. So if you're wondering why this POV isn't in the front row, that's why. I was gonna get 1 front row ride, but this coaster scarred me too much to do that. Flying Cobras is not smooth whatsoever. After the initial drop, which is punchy, the coaster rattles you through a cobra roll and a vertical loop. These inversions are forceful as well, so the intensity and rattle left me fucked. Now that alone wouldn't deter me from disliking it. However, after the second spike, you do the entire layout in reverse, and this was even more forceful and rattly. Luckily, this had vest restraints, so headbanging wasn't an issue, but that one ride destroyed me and almost made me puke. So yeah, Flying Cobras, never doing that again. After that, I needed something more chill. Luckily, Carolina Gold Rusher was next door, so I headed for that. Good news, the coaster's queue was shaded. Bad news, they were only running 1 train. Bro, what the f*** is this? This came as a shock because aside from Flying Cobras and some of the family coasters, every other coaster here was running 2 or even 3 trains. I quickly learned it's because the second train was in pieces. Motherfucker, why are you rebuilding in the middle of June? You have an off-season for a reason. Whatever, at least it was only 30 minutes, the longest I've waited the entire day, and this mine train is fairly underrated. This aero mine train is not the most advanced family coaster out there, but it's wild. The aero jankiness means you're getting thrown around from the shakiness, and there are great laterals as the turns and helix are, for the most part, low to the ground, but unlike another aero at this park, the jankiness doesn't hurt. So while Gold Striker is not the most exciting, this coaster is still a fun enjoyment. Finally, I have enough credits aligned. Time to make Fury my 100th coaster. But first, I head straight for another Coke refill station for another water cup. Now it's time to take on Fury. Standing where the entrance is, it's intimidating seeing this massive towering coaster with this sick logo for the coaster. But waiting for this made me realize how dead Carowinds was that day, because it was literally a station wait for this coaster. Heck, the grouper for that attraction didn't even show up until midday. This to me was surprising, cause this was a Sunday in the middle of June at 12:30 p.m. I thought for sure some of these coasters would garner a fairly decent wait, but nope, almost everything got to 15 minutes at max. That's great for me because I like to get a lot done. So I chose the front row because I had my glasses that day, so POVs, and also to feel the 95 miles per hour or 153 kilometers per hour speed. I get seated on an end seat, and this is where I witnessed one of the weirder policies. This has to do with your shoes. On many rides here, you're not allowed to ride with loose footwear because of the insecure nature, which means it could fly out more easily. So naturally, the operators were enforcing riders to take them off. That was normal. What wasn't was that they made you put the slides onto the seat and made you sit on it for the ride. The fuck? Why? There's no way that's comfortable. Your ass is getting more bruised up than a pickpocketer targeting an American. Lucky for me, I wear sneakers, so this wasn't personally an issue. And Fury 325 is straight gas. I've already made a separate review for this coaster, but this B&M Giga is a world-class coaster with elite airtime and laterals. The first drop is an extremely sustained moment with several seconds of floater airtime. Then the first half has these snappy elements with great airtime and surprisingly strong laterals, especially at the low hills where you feel the max speed. But then Fury hits some dead spots with this curve and this helix. They do absolutely nothing. However, this camelback and the airtime finale returns the ride to greatness with 4 more moments of sustained floater airtime. This is a near perfect coaster that's top 20 worthy. You should come out to Carowinds to ride this elite coaster that almost too many parks are either too broke or landlocked to afford. When we hit the brakes, someone said this to me.
Yo, bud, you went to Epic Universe?
How you know I went to Epic?
The shirt you're wearing.
Oh yeah, I forgot I was wearing this. For context, exactly 1 week prior, I visited Universal's Epic Universe for the first time. I've already made a trip report for that park, which majorly contributed to months of delays. It took 4 months to make, only for it to bomb so badly, I lost motivation to make this video. Please, I'm desperate for views, so check out that video if you can. But the last thing I did before I left the park was buy this Epic shirt, which I happened to wear that day. I kid you not, I had over a dozen people went up to me about Epic. After I got off, I started to realize why the park has been somewhat empty, because holy crap, I was sweating bullets. Because like I said, it was 95 degrees Fahrenheit with 88% humidity during the heat wave going on at that time. Ain't no one trying to feel deep fried after someone pours ice in the fryers. Which is why once again, we got another round of water. Hydration acquired, time for Hurler, the International Coasters Incorporated wooden coaster. Wait, what? Who the hell are they? Oh, this explains a lot. Hurler is widely considered hot and garbage because it's rough and boring. What I will say, however, is that this is perhaps the worst roller coaster station I've ever seen. I've said Afterburn Station feels like a hot box. Hurler Station was the stained bathrooms all over again, because it's literally a tin metal box containing tons of trapped heat. It looked like the shed that housed a trafficking ring. So naturally, there was like around 10 people waiting for the next train. And my first ride was one of the funniest rides. For one, half the ride had weak to no forces, so the area that violently shakes is laughable. The other reason was the people I was riding with. Right before I got on the front row, I got approached by this chick asking if she and her family could ride in the front with me, as well as the 2 rows behind me. But for the life of me, I cannot remember their names. The only one I can recall is the girl riding in front with me. We'll call her Angelina. She saw I was the only one waiting for the front row, and since I was by myself, she took the shot. The reason I'm mentioning this was because they were screaming in Russian. Now, I don't know if you ever heard someone being terrified in Russian, but for me it was hilarious because I've never seen something like that. So during the ride, I was laughing in hysteria hearing the people behind me. So there's me and her up front with her cousin, I think, we'll call him Dan for this, and I think either her other cousin or sister in row 2. We'll call her Karina for the sake of this video, and then 2 more relatives in row 3. As for Hurler itself, my thoughts are about what you expect. Hurler is underrated, with the first half from the drop and the triple camelback having solid air, and on a non-wheel seat, it's rideable. Then the first turn and far turnaround have decent lats. But Hurler has some major pacing issues. After this airtime hill with light floater, the coaster dies. It gets sluggish, no notable forces, and the final turnaround is Jackhammer City. Overall, I like Hurler, but I wouldn't be opposed to an RMC conversion akin to Twisted Timbers. After the ride, Angelina asked if I wanted to join her crew on Fury. Girl, a Fury re-ride is always a win. So I joined her family for this ride and we walked into the station. Once again, it was a station wait. With this ride, I took an end seat. Angelina took the other end with Karina and Dan in the middle. Once again, I am blessed with another ride because this ride experience is elite. This ride was also funnier because take their reaction on Hurler and ramp it to giga heights. It was funny, though justified. After another Fury ride, I departed from Angelina's group and once again, more water cause duh. Alright, next door is Carolina Cyclone, the aerodynamics custom looper that opened with the first coaster with 4 inversions. I headed into essentially this wooden shed and once again, it was a walk-on. I sat in the front row and wow, this was not a good ride. The layout is simple. A drop into double vertical loops, a hop into a double corkscrew, and a helix. Very simple. The issue is that due to it being built at a time when coasters were limited, this thing was quite janky. Now if this were Gold Rusher janky, that would be fine. It's intense and the jankiness makes it unhinged. Except the Cyclone has hard over-the-shoulder restraints. Yeah, that's not very fun. Say what you want about them, the fact that matters is that over-the-shoulders increase the chances of major head or neck pain, making the coaster less enjoyable, which is why they're my least favorite type of restraints. In this case, the janky aero track will slam riders' heads or necks into the restraints. Luckily, my head was above the restraints, so I ended up with neck chopping, but this was not the most enjoyable. It seems like the more aero loopers I ride, the less I start to like them. I've ridden some aero loopers that are genuinely fun. Meanwhile, Carolina Cyclone is janky, rough, and slow. So the Cyclone is fine, but I don't care. After the Cyclone, I'm by Ricochet, so I head over there, only to find out the coaster is down for maintenance. That's fine. Vortex is nearby. Wait a minute, Vortex? God damn it! By all accounts, Vortex is one of the worst roller coasters in the world. It's a B&M stand-up coaster and the 3rd coaster B&M ever produced. So naturally, the coaster is rough. But the trains make it worse because it's a stand-up where you straddle a bike seat with hard over-the-shoulder restraints. This means Vortex can destroy your head, your legs, and your nuts if you're a guy. If you're not careful, the ride will make you feel like you ended up on Epstein's Island. Luckily, I didn't get that pain. Granted, my one ride on Vortex was less than ideal. Just like most stand-ups, the restraints here are stiff as crap. I said it once before and I'll say it again. These trains are stiffer than a gooner's body pillow. Luckily, I had some help from the operators. Unfortunately, it worked a little too well because the operators pushed it way too far, so now my shoulders hurt. They were pressing and digging into my shoulders, but I tolerated the pain because shoulder pain is more tolerable than head or nut pain. See, there's tiers to pain on a roller coaster. Generally, the head and pelvis are the worst since that's where you feel the most pain, with your neck not far behind. Shoulder pain is probably in the middle since that's the result of garbage restraints. Also, I did not want to come off feeling like I left the prison showers. This helped as I came off Vortex unscathed. The coaster's layout is simple. A twisted drop into a vertical loop, a couple of helix type turns, a corkscrew, and another helix type turn. The loop has decent positive G's and the corkscrew and some of the turns have decent laterals, but one thing I noticed was how rough and dull the layout is. While I thankfully didn't get headbanging, I could tell Vortex was rough by how much I was shaking around. Also, the layout is bland as I didn't get the falling sensations I got on Scorcher. For those reasons, Vortex is the worst extreme B&M I've ridden. After Vortex, I went back to Ricochet, still closed for maintenance. Alright, looks like I'm heading to the kids area. But first, more water, and I head to the kids area. And man, I was sweating bullets. It felt like I was getting cooked alive in the oven. Thankfully, Camp Snoopy, the kids area, was very shaded and felt good under the sun. Again, I went during a heat wave, and I'm honestly surprised I didn't get sunburnt. Eventually, I came across Woodstock Express and figured, why not? I entered the queue, once again no wait. I rode Woodstock and it's a fun coaster. This PTC Junior coaster is unique as it's made of wood. This makes the rumble and sway of Woodstock feel more interesting than the average Junior coaster. It's not going to be the most exciting, but the turns have faint laterals, and since it's mild, it's reasonably smooth. Well, as smooth as a wood coaster can be. After Woodstock, I found the path to get to Wilderness Run, and this pathway happens to lead me where Snoopy's Racing Railway is, so I headed for that. And this was redemption time for me. It's worth noting that Carowinds' ride lineup is similar to Canada's Wonderland. If you compare the rides at both parks, you'll notice how similar they are down to the exact make and model. One ride that exists at both parks is this Art Family launch coaster. However, back when I went to Canada's Wonderland, I didn't get to ride it over there, because back then, Snoopy's had this annoying policy where adults needed a child to ride. This was annoying as it negates adults who would otherwise be interested in riding. Yeah, there's free will to borrow someone's kid, but like, who the f is actually doing that? You are a creep if you're doing that, and people will cancel you for being a weirdo. I'm not trying to get placed on the offender registry, so I didn't get the credit. Luckily, since that visit, Six Flags removed the policy on a majority of kiddie coasters, so I was able to ride this. The wait was another 20 minutes due to its lower capacity, and no shade either. God damn it. Baking is shit, and I didn't get any water before riding it. Luckily, because of the position of the sun, I was able to get shade from the roof. Plus, it was only a staircase into the station. And this family coaster is way more dynamic than you would think. This Art Family coaster features 2 launches that toss you into zippy turns. These turns aren't forceful, but they flow real nice. Then the second launch is in a shed surrounded by Snoopy theming. And as a bonus, Snoopy gives 2 laps. And since it's brand new, it's glossy smooth. Thank goodness they got rid of that policy, because this was a fun ride to try. After Snoopy's, I tracked down Wilderness Run, and yes, it was open, so I got to ride it. And surprise! Nobody was there, as this was a dead end in the kids area. Though, when I boarded, I was surprised this thing had seatbelts. Yes, seatbelts on a kiddie coaster. Why? They don't do anything. The only reason they're even on coasters is for redundant safety purposes for rides with heavy forces, such as, well, every major ride here at Carowinds. This thing barely has force, though this tiny thing is way more aggressive than you would think. Wilderness Run is a larger model of E&F Myler's kiddie coasters. The first drop and airtime hill throw riders sideways, then the helix and smaller bunny hops buck the riders forward. The fact it does this much already makes it an above average kiddie coaster, and it's one of the best kiddie coasters I've ridden. After Wilderness, I headed back to Ricochet since I still need the credit. But then I realized Thunder Striker is a station wait, so I got a second ride in the back row. Still on the weaker end, but it's a great coaster. However, we stacked on this brake run. As much as I give Carowinds credit for running 3 trains on their major rides, they seem to double stack half the time. So while stacked on this brake run, I realized 2 things. First, more coasters need to have roofs over their final brakes. I was absolutely dying in this heat wave, trying my best not to look like a 2-for-1 special at Wendy's. The other thing I realized is how much of an idiot some people are with their stuff. To the right of Thunder Striker's brake is its maintenance shed. Tell me why I looked to my right to find piles and piles of loose articles on this maintenance shed roof. It was bad. We're talking multiple items lost from people's pockets, from keys to vapes to devices and even used rags. Now this was not the weirdest items I've witnessed, but this was pretty bad. After another Thunder Striker ride, I found a refill station and treated it like a water ride because Carowinds didn't have one at the time. Then I head back to Fury for more laps. After 2 back row rides, I felt more like death than ever before at a park. I was losing it because now my head was in pain from all the sweating, so alright, I'm recharged. Let's go back to Ricochet. And look at that, they got the coaster fixed. Let's go ride it. And ride it indeed, because the wait was only 10 minutes. This was the biggest sign that Carowinds was dead that day, because Ricochet does not have the greatest capacity. It uses a 4-person car like all Wild Mouses, and the experience is what you expect. It's a standard Wild Mouse, and my opinions are the same as the others I've ridden. The hairpin turns at the top are wild, with intense, sharp laterals that will throw you to the side. Part of the reason was that the trims were lacking at the switchbacks. Unfortunately, when you hit this straightaway, the trims kick into high gear and take all your speed away. This means during the second half, it was a slow crawl with weak laterals and zero airtime, absolutely zero thrills. Deactivate those trims, then we'll talk about this being a great wild mouse. Finally, we got all the available credits. Well, all the credits that were open that day. Time to chill, get re-rides, and most importantly, yeah, I'm heading back to Copperhead. So I went back to Copperhead and it now had a longer wait. 10 minutes and started halfway up the stairs. Now by this point, they had groupers out assigning rows, but I got all my POVs by then. So I got the back row and the coaster is still great. Copperhead was the biggest surprise this day as I haven't ridden a ton of mocks, so this delighted me. However, this brake run was the lowest point of the day, cause I got stuck on this freaking brake run for like 20 minutes. It was terrible because the brake run is unshaded, so I'm covered in profuse sweat and praying to God I don't get a sunburn. But because of the humidity, the sweat made me feel sticky, more dehydrated, and feeling more dirty than Jeffrey Dahmer's fridge. I've already told you about the heat wave, but remember that this is the South, meaning this is humid heat rather than dry heat. So because there was a lot of moisture in the air, you sweat more and it's harder to cool off, making it more likely to suffer from a heat stroke. I was drying up on that brake run, feeling like I went 10 rounds in a McDonald's kitchen. The reason we were stuck that long was because the crew had to clean up one of the trains. God damn it, someone really had to bust one out and lose all their aura points. Why do I have to suffer for that? That really pissed me off because when I got off, I was out of it. My head hurts, sticky as shit, and I could barely function as is. I was so out of it, I ended up riding their Boo Blaster shooting dark ride. And this was the best decision I made all day. This Sally dark ride is a simple shooter ride where you shoot at simple targets that activate a cardboard prop. But Boo Blasters is well maintained as the guns and props were functioning. So you know, I had to lock in and got a stupid number of points. And best of all, AC. Yes! This feels good. This by far had the best AC in the park as it was blistering cold, but it felt good. After that wonderful ride on Boo Blasters, I realized, shit, I still need to re-ride Afterburn. I'm probably going to regret it, but Afterburn is a good ride. So I head to Afterburn knowing dang well it's probably going to kill me. As much as I praise the intensity, it sometimes causes me to crash and burn that day, especially if I ride back to back. Because on top of the heat, lately I've been having issues with motion sickness and intensity when it comes to riding coasters. Whenever I ride a coaster, depending on the intensity, it only takes 2 to 4 rides before I feel like passing out. The only reason I'm saying this is because I'm already mentally f***ed and Afterburn is intense. But whatever, I get in the back road on an NC and it's just as crazy. Once I get off, it's 4 p.m, better go eat cause I ain't trying to have a repeat of a specific Busch Gardens day I had a few months prior. Based on the little research I did, I went into Harmony Hall since that apparently has the best food in the park. Looking over the food options, I went with a brisket with mac and cheese since this is the South. The brisket was fine, but nothing special. Mac and cheese on the other hand was excellent as it was creamy and delicious. Alright, decent meal, but I need to let one rip. So I take a stall and do a dump and dash. You know, I ain't trying to get caught lacking like that time my sister caught my cousin lacking with the door unlocked. After leaving the halls, I went back to Fury for another back row ride. On the way there, I take a good look at this lake knowing damn well there used to be a Vekoma Flying Dutchman. After another Fury ride, I feel like death. Much better. Aw man! Better get a hurler re-ride. So I hop in the queue, once again still a fucking hotbox looking like the damn sweatshops. I hop in the back car, not on a wheel seat cause I'm already fucked up as is. The last thing I need is to turn my brain into mashed potatoes. And the ride is about the same as before. Great first half with underrated airtime, boring second half with splinters for tracks. Getting off of hurler, I couldn't ride anymore. Even after another water cup run, I just had this awful headache from the heat and any more coasters could legitimately knock me out. I know that's uncharacteristic of me since, well, I go to amusement parks all the time. Even weirder, as I mentioned multiple times, I live in Florida. I'm built for high temperatures with heavy humidity. But the difference this day was that I was riding way more G-force heavy coasters in a shorter runtime than usual while staying out of the sun longer. Cause surprisingly, I usually don't ride that much at a theme park and I'm usually not at that park for long. At Carowinds, I was riding a ton of rides since this is a full day park. Plus, most of the rides here lack air conditioning and felt like the swamps of the South. That's why I was feeling more miserable than usual. So as a precaution, make sure you get your water in. So I was walking around the park getting some footage. You know, the park looks nice. Some parts of the park look fantastic. Others look like carnival rides slapped on top of a parking lot. Also went into the water park just because. While exploring the water park, I noticed Copperhead was down for maintenance. Okay, how come all the mock coasters are breaking down today? At least I'm not the dumbass waiting on the staircase. I was so miserable, I ran it back on Blue Blasters because the AC was just that good. So I hopped back on and it was just as good and chilling. Except because it's humid as fuck, everything feels sticky. So I head inside into the Harmony Hall for more refills and scroll on TikTok for a couple hours. Hey, I was out of it. I need to recharge. But at some point around 7, my aunt calls telling me she's on her way to pick me up. So I head back to Fury to get one more front row ride. The line got a little longer, the bottom of the staircase, and this last ride cemented my opinions that Fury 325 is a top 10 coaster. This is a coaster every enthusiast should come out for. And that was it. After my final ride, I went to look at merchandise, realized I'm broke as shit, got some footage of Fury, hopped in the whip, and slept at another aunt's place nearby. So overall thoughts of the park. Weather aside, since they can't control it, Carowinds is a solid park. The park is nicely maintained and the rides, while garbage, is well rounded. But you come for the top 4, and that top 4 is great with varying levels of forces. If they replace their filler with better replacements, Carowinds could easily rise in the rankings. I would also like to see Carowinds get a water ride. Normally, I don't ride water rides, but on a day like this, a water ride would have been appreciated. Finally, the operations for Six Flags are decent. But just because a park is dead doesn't automatically mean the waits are non-existent. But Carowinds has always been run great with most rides having great uptime and the operators were pushing it. They just gotta stop double stacking on their rides. Other than that, I can't really judge the operations like I usually do because it was so dead, the wait times would still be short even with horrible operations. But as I said, parks in the south can get miserable with hot weather, or in some cases bad weather, so make sure you are prepared when you go. So that is it. That is my day at Carowinds on June 22nd, 2025. If there's anything you should know about this park, leave them down in the comments. Also, since you made it this far, somehow, please give this video a like since you must have liked it enough to get this far. Also, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Videos in this series take an eternity to make, and I'm sick and tired of spending months on a video just to make less views than a POV I shot in 2 minutes. Especially since it's been several months since that visit. So pressing that button will do me favors. Plus, you'll be alerted next time I upload a video. Also, I'm on TikTok and Instagram, so go give me a follow over there. Finally, watch more of these bangers you see here. This is TheCoasterFlood, riding out.